Hey, church, this month's book recommendation is actually a pair of books by the late Timothy Keller. The first is Making Sense of God, an invitation to the skeptical, and the second is Reason for God, Belief in the Age of Skepticism. Now, Tim Keller actually just died earlier this year, May 19th, 2023. And if you're familiar with Tim Keller, you know that he spent a good chunk of his ministry in Manhattan, largely doing ministry with an eye towards sort of our skeptical age and reaching the skeptic. And so, as part of his ministry, he put these two books, a pair of books together, seeking to make a reasonable case for Christianity within the age of skepticism and to the person who themselves is skeptical. He actually wrote Reason for God first, but Making Sense of God, he then wrote later as something of a prequel to Reason for God. So, whereas Reason for God seeks to sort of get into the debate of Christianity's truthfulness and answering specific questions about Christianity, such as is Christianity incompatible with science, or how can a good God send people to hell? Did the resurrection of Jesus actually happen? How can there just be one true religion among all the religions? Reason for God provides something of a rational case for Christianity, providing reasoned arguments. Making Sense of God actually goes a little bit more upstream, sort of starts the conversation even earlier, the pre-conversation to those arguments of why we should even consider Christianity in the first place, and really providing a case for why Christianity makes sense of our lived experience, how it makes the most sense of our lived experience, so that it's even worth hearing and getting into some of those more specific debates. In Making Sense for God, Keller shows how Christianity meets some of our deepest longings and answers some of our culture's most pressing needs, and how Christianity provides even an existentially satisfying answer to our sense for meaning in this life. So, really, these books, even though they were written with a bit of a span of time in between them, Keller intended them to be read together. They serve as something of a pair, Making Sense of God being the prequel, and then Reason for God being that original work. And so I recommend reading those two together. I am sure you'll find them very helpful. They can be helpful to work through if you're not a believer, of course. But even if you are a believer, they can help you consider the faith more deeply and how Christianity both answers objections and provides better alternatives to the other worldviews out there. It's a way of building up our own faith, but also equipping us for those conversations that we may have with our non believing friends and neighbors.